Why I choose to be a patriot. When Benjamin Franklin left Independence Hall after the first drafting of the American Constitution, a woman approached him and asked, "Mr. Franklin, what manner of government have you bequeathed us?" And he replied, "A republic, ma'am, if you can keep it." The responsibility of our nation is dependent on what we are willing to put forward, the things we are willing to change, and where we are willing to invest our time and energy. Patriotism is a personal attachment and affinity for one's own country. I define patriotism as a drive to make one's country the best that it could possibly be. My name is Kenna. Very close to Kenya, I know. So am I Kenna or am I Kenya? I am a Kenyan. But in as much as that is true, I know that Kenya is in me. And the sum total of who I am is because I have lived and grown up in this wonderful nation. We live in a world where global citizenship is on the rise, and being international is such a benefit. But I believe that in order to be international, we must first understand what it means to be national. Every one of us here is an ambassador of where we come from to the world. So what are you bringing to the table? What am I bringing to the table? Could someone look at me and see my country? Could anyone ask me a question about my country and receive an appropriate answer? See, the evolution of the term patriotism has changed over time. And when we look back on the days of Mzee Jomo Kenyatta, for him, patriotism meant fueling the fight for independence, whatever it took, whether it was subterfuge, a cold cell in Kapenguria, or the sacrifices, and I mean personal sacrifices, of leading an infant nation. And maybe for David Rudisha, patriotism means training relentlessly. It means fighting his flesh until he is able to put on his Team Kenya tracksuit and ensure that every Olympics, all Kenyans have something to smile about. These are just a few of my heroes. And I know that everyone in here could as easily substitute these names with some of their own heroes. But my question still stands. What are you doing to bring pride to the nation you come from? Shall you be listed amongst these heroes? What is your patriotic contribution? Our generation is desperate, and desperate for an alternative narrative, a different story, a story that tells us that we can be victors and not victims, a story that tells us that there is a way, that we could be successful and keep our integrity, a story that does not tell us that we are beaten before we even begin. I sit sometimes and laugh at myself for the times I have believed in the lie that our country is too far gone, that our republic is unsalvageable, that my generation is spoiled and manipulative, and so on. There is, for me, a necessary conversation that seeks to undermine such messaging. So I asked myself, what could I do to ensure that I am a valiant patriot who would sow these seeds in generations from here on end? What does the USA do to cultivate such model patriotism? Or what do Nigeria do to ensure the very same? So allow me to break this down to 3 simple steps which I believe will cultivate a patriotic spirit: light, love, and leadership. The light. For me, it all began with light. In that seemingly inconsequential Year 3 class, where I first learned about Kenyan history. And I learned about a land that meant so much to me, yet a land that my eyes had never truly been open to. It's safe to say that our country's beauty is often shrouded in the negativity that we're exposed to. Yet at the very epicenter, there are untold stories, an unlanguaged beauty, and a golden uniqueness that we ought to protect. Did you know that Kenya is the only country in the world that has a national park in its capital city? Or did you know that Kenya is the only place in the world where there is an area recorded to have no gravity? Yet this is news to some of us here. Once we know and understand where we come from, we will believe that we are good enough, big enough, and we have enough to be great. No one will ever be able to tell us to strip us of our pride, or to exploit our land. And that's the Kenya that I want to be a part of. So together with a friend of mine, we came up with Insika, a program that seeks to shrink our country down, to bring us together, to go out in search of the light that I've talked about, and to create an experience where my peers and our generation as a whole could go out and visit different communities, different ethnic groups, and gain a hands-on appreciation for our cultures. Maybe then, I thought, we'd be able to take it personally if there were to be, say, a humanitarian issue in our country. Because we remember the times we visited the place, the people we left, the families we saw, our people, our families, our Kenya. The love. The second step. They say love is a conscious process, but I disagree. I think it's rather unconscious. We as humans inadvertently love the things we treasure. So when we do treasure our nation, we shall learn to love it. However, after shining the light, we must learn to stop complaining. The Republic has been placed in our hands, and shifting the blame is not a symbol of responsibility, but cowardice, not of strength, but weakness. We should encourage an active love for our country. This love is not based on the idea that all things are perfect. No. It is based on the notion that whatever I face today, though I may not love it, is necessary for me to get to the next step. Thus, I embrace it. Trust me, I know that trying to convince you to be a patriot at a time like this is quite an uphill task. And I understand, if not partially share, your skepticism. So let's try it like this. There once was an oyster, whose story I tell, who found that some sand had gotten into his shell. It was only a grain, but it gave him such pain, for oysters have feelings, although they're so plain. Now, did he berate on the harsh workings of fate that had brought him to such a deplorable state? Did he curse at the government and cry for elections? Or claim that the sea should have given him protection? No, he said to himself. Since I cannot remove it, I shall try to improve it. Now the years have rolled around, as the years always do, and he came to his ultimate destiny, stew. And the small grain of sand that had bothered him so was a beautiful pearl, all richly aglow. Now the tale has a moral, for isn't it grand what an oyster could do with but a morsel of sand? And what couldn't we do if we'd only begin with some of the things that get under our skin? Now, on a more practical level, I believe that any change we want to see in the world happens in the span of time between which virtues are instilled in a child and the very same virtues dislodged into society. Leadership. Someone once told me that leadership ought not to be selfish, naive, opportunistic, or visionless. It ought to be full of grandeur, fidelity, tenacity, and gallantry. Such virtues we hold from our very beginnings. I could tell you that for my parents, I learned that a leader is not a superhero. They are doers and dreamers. They are everyday people who choose to rise above. So today, I choose to be a patriot. I choose to take my light and to shine it under the floorboards of my republic to uncover what I truly stand upon. I choose to love my country fearlessly, in its entirety, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Then I vow to lead with integrity and passion, because the courage, the fight, the victory, it's in the dream. And I dare you to dream with me. Thank you.